Today's sponsor of BOPCAST is sodabeats.com, the best and most simple way to make beats online right now. There's no ripping them from YouTube, no stealing other people's beats, getting insanely compressed versions of people's beats that they've used hundreds of thousands of times. You get to make your own beats the most simple way possible. You don't have to have any music production experience, and then you can render them out, download them, and use them for any purpose forever. It's the best way to make beats online, sodabeats.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of BOPCAST. Today on BOPCAST, I have my good friend Kadeem Leslie. Now, I will introduce him, but I'm going to have him do a little bit better introduction than I can. But in short, he's an author, a teacher, a trader, a business owner, a mentor, investor. And when I say teacher, I mean more through his book, through his actual learnings, his teachings, his videos, his content, as well as this extremely extensive book on how to be a successful college student. But in my opinion, I think it can apply to more of life as well. But I don't want to, that's about as good as I'm going to butcher your introduction, man. So Kadeem, if you could, first of all, thank you for being here. And if you could just introduce yourself to the audience, we'd love to hear what you're all about, man.
Well, thank you. That was a wonderful introduction, I must say. What's missing there is that I do play the cello. You can see the cello in the background. I like to have it there. I'm a classically trained cellist. And so, that's a little bit about me. I love the arts. I consider myself to be a creative person. And so if that comes up in the conversation, we'll see where this goes. But besides that, I do own my own real estate company, which is, operates in 3 countries now, which is just fantastic. I am 22. I'm a senior in college. I'm about to graduate. I'm a straight A student. And as Ryan said, and I've written a book called The Full Student, which you should definitely go on Amazon and get. We'll talk about that later.
Oh, yeah. You know it, man. So, yes. So you've written this book, The Full Student. You do all these other things. What connected with me personally is, the ability to not be defined by your position in college, not be defined by I am a kid, so I'm going to do what every other kid is doing, right? So many people, so many of us, and the only reason that happens is because we don't know anything else. And nobody opens our eyes to this whole world of investing, trading, whatever it might be, right? So for me, like, I wasn't really one to go out to parties and stuff like that. I was working on myself. I was working on my music. As you know, it was the same thing that you were doing. When you play instruments, when you make music, whatever, like, you have to set aside that time to practice. So boom, you're taking that out of the equation now too.
Right.
You don't have time for other stuff. Then you're working on business. I was working on my business too in my senior year of college.
Just before I came here, I was practicing.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. I completely believe that, man. Like, I know, because that's the grind, man. And that's why we're doing this, just so folks know. They're not going to know when it's out, but we're doing this at 9:00 at night on a Monday.
That's right.
Because that's when we have time to do it. And
right.
And, respect to you, you're still in college and you're about to graduate. But, for me, I'm going to start a little more broad and then go more specific. I do have a lot of different questions to ask you, but in short, or to summarize, what was the main reason for you to, the main reason that you wrote this book? Was it a moment in time? Was it a thought, a realization that you had? Was it a compilation of all your experiences and you one day realized, I really have to put this in writing? Why did you want to write this?
It's the last thing that you said, and you hit it right on the nail. It was a compilation of many different things that happened over several years. In the introduction of the book, I laid out where the story began, which was, in grade 9. In grade 7, I was at the bottom of my class. And then about grade 9, I foresaw college coming, right? And so I knew I needed to change. And at that time in grade 9, I decided, I couldn't afford college. And so the only way I was going to get to college is, if I got myself together on this cello and also settled down and got great grades. So I moved myself. I remember the first time I got to 21st in the class, and I moved myself to 14th, and then 11th, and then 7th, and then 3rd. And then I eventually got to number 1 by the time I graduated high school. And I had the highest GPA of anyone in my year, and that was my journey. And it didn't happen overnight. As I said, I moved. But, after each semester, I refined and I refined and I refined. And, so that happened before I came to college. And then in the spring semester of my sophomore year, I was thinking to myself, I'm a peer advisor at college. And the same strategies that I found that helped me to achieve straight A's, even in college, I believe that they could have helped all the students. So I started to, tutor students, quote unquote. I was also teaching high school students through a program called Trio Upward Bound. And I was also, I am a cello teacher. And so, being around students and just knowing what students do to excel, how excellence looks like as a student, different strategies and so on, even the mindset behind what it takes to be just a great student. And then going beyond that, combining that with the business side of things, which has always been a part of me since grade 9 and before that. I found that just putting these things down in writing, instead of just telling the people that I can meet one-on-one with, I believe it could help just thousands more people. And so the full student was written. And it has taken 2 years and it's finally out.
Wow, yeah, and I think you mentioned that too in the book as well. Is a kind of like it's 7 years of research, but it took you 2 to write it, right? If I'm correct on that. And really, in reality, it was a lifetime of research, right? And it was really just you getting to. It took you your entire life to get you to that point. But I'd like
it's a running joke for me that this is technically my life's work.
Yeah, man. Not much, in the short lives that we've lived, right?
Right.
For real, man, for real. But you have great perspective, and you're definitely, you have the perspective, the wisdom of somebody much, much older than yourself, at least from what I've seen. I'm the same age as you. I'm 22 as well. Graduated college in December, but still in a very, kind of similar position. But so I'm curious too, when it came to so you really, you sought to get good grades because you knew that college was coming, but you weren't always getting good grades. So what was your approach? Was it study more? Was it was there? So I know in this whole thing, I know in this answer is that's how you found all these tips and tricks and mindset and whatever to get there. But what was your first, when you said, okay, I'm going to change, I'm going to focus on school now. What did you start to try to do?
So the story in chapter 1 in the book speaks to that, but I'll say a little bit more about that story. So the story begins that, the people tell you to just work harder, and I'm sure, every American reading know that that's what the American dream is. Just work hard and you'll make it. That's not exactly how it works, right? There are things besides just working hard, but you do have to work hard. And so I will say that you do have to work hard, right? So
it's only one part of the equation, right?
Exactly. So I did start working harder, much harder. Definitely. So I remember, some of the sacrifices that I made. It's for example, playing the cello. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and practice until 7, which was 3 hours, right? And I would practice during lunchtime. So I wouldn't take lunch when everyone else took lunch, which actually helped me, in hindsight, but I'll get to that in a second. And then I'd practice again at night. So then I'd practice 5 hours every day while still doing studies. And then I would also teach music after school. Now, what happened was, because I had no time after school, I didn't have time to study. So then in the time that I did have to study, it was probably doing homework rather than studying. And so I had to find a way to make sure that I stayed on top of my schoolwork while also studying. Now, what I just said earlier about practicing during lunchtime, what actually helped was, so when most people eat lunch, and this happens in the corporate world, this happens in the student, for everyone, when we eat lunch, we get tired in the afternoon. Inadvertently, what helped me was to practice during lunchtime. And so when I came back from lunch, I was wide awake. I was
you fasted.
Almost on caffeine. Right. Yeah. And, I just stumbled upon that, but it so happened that worked out for me. And so in doing those things, I said, okay, well, what can I do to not have to spend time after class? Pay attention, stuff like that. And, so the book was written.
For me, man, that's so powerful, because I think a lot of the issue that people face is they actually, as you know, we don't make time. Nobody makes time for
Absolutely.
things. We don't make it. You can't create it. It's finite. We
Same
have this
24
much.
hours.
Same 24 hours, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of it is being in this mindset where you feel like you're out of control of your time.
Right.
When in reality, we're very much in control of certain. You're not in control of most things. You're not in control of, but what you can control most of the time is your time.
Absolutely.
But for you, it wasn't an option. There wasn't options. It's not like, well, I could just not practice. But
I probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah, right? So, like, I think in some people's minds, like, they just give themselves an option, man. You didn't give yourself the option.
Right, because I knew that, I didn't want to fall behind. And I knew where I wanted to go. And I knew that at some point I would have to work hard. And I could either work hard now, like, right, as we're here, and this isn't work.
I know, this is fun. This is
fun.
Now, when I go to edit this, that's what
there you go. Right. So I could choose the type of hard work I wanted to do.
Yes.
And if I started that choice earlier, then I would find myself enjoying the hard work more. I think, living a life where you are daily, day in, day out, working on your dreams, 12-hour days, 10-hour days, whatever, versus, working the same amount of time and struggling to pay your bills. Both of those things are hard. And I'm not going to say that you get to decide, because that's not true for everyone. But if you have the choice to decide, I think living the life where you can pursue your dreams day in, day out, that's the type of hard that I think people should go for.
I'm with you. And I think some people are just meant, it's a responsibility thing and it's a problem thing. So it's what kind of problems do you have and what kind of responsibilities do you want to have? Some people want 9-to-5 problems. Some people want entrepreneur problems. Some people want musician problems. Some people want accountant problems. So it's just about what type of problems you want and what type of fires you want to put out,
Right. And I will say, embedded in that story was discipline. And I think so. So I remember, like, there was a series of, like, one summer where I was meeting a lot of people and I had to do the same icebreaker, like maybe 5 times over one summer. And the icebreaker was, use 3 words to describe you. And 2 of the words would always change, but one word that would remain, and this is how I remember it now, would be focused. And within focus implies discipline. And so, getting up at 4 o'clock is not something that the average person is willing to do. And it would mean that I would have to have gone to bed by 8 p.m. Now, you can imagine, as a 17, 16-year-old.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
That's crazy. And looking back now, I don't do that. No, I don't. Yeah. I wouldn't do that now, right? But to be able to have been able to do that, it just requires massive amounts of discipline. And that's not something that you can pick up in a book. That's just something that's within you.
You have to build it.
It's you deciding what's important to you now and in the future. So I would say discipline goes a far way. And I think that our generation needs more.
That's it. We do. And we're pulled. We have a lot of pushes and pulls in this direction, in that direction.
It is harder.
And but I'm in 7 group chats and it's bling, bling, bling all day. Yes. It's just the phone's lighting up, right? And so you get to the end of the day, you're like, I'm just going to go to bed. Like, and you feel like it was all lost. So when the way to fix that is discipline, right? And tracking your time and actually knowing what you do every day, starting your morning off. I mean, all of these different things. And I'd like to definitely touch on that more as well. And I'm going to go through, I have the chapters written down. So, we're going to be going through certain aspects of the chapters as well. But I'd like to ask you this. What is the definition of the full student? What is a full student in Kadeem's terms?
All right. So there are 3 definitions, but I think my favorite definition of what it means to be full is I'll give you 2. So there are multiple aspects to each of us, right? And being full is one about balance. So there are financial aspects, physical, spiritual, emotional, right? Familial, and the list goes on and on. But being full is maximizing all of these areas as much as you can. So you can't maximize financial without maximizing your spiritual aspect, right? And you'll find you'll find that if you really study what, wealthy people do with their time, they spend it to focus on spiritual stuff, which is, not just spiritual, but mental stuff, right? You'll read that, I think it's Warren Buffett. I'm not sure, but it could be Warren Buffett that he takes a week off every year. I think week. Is it Warren Buffett? Do you know?
I would say so. He also drinks. He also drinks Coca-Cola and eats a lot of McDonald's. So we can. No, I'm just throwing that in.
Right. But even like taking a think week, and you'd say that, well, he can take a think week. He's
Warren Buffett. He can do whatever he wants. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's also more busy. I'm
on your side of this, man. I'm on your side of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He's also more busy than the average person. He's responsible to
100. He's he's the top 10 most influential probably people on earth almost.
Right. Right. And then if he can take a week off, then
yeah, but this is the thing. People are going on vacation just to post the picture on Instagram.
Right.
So the fact that to take a week off, they're like, well, I'm going to Cancun, dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? So this is the mindset.
Right. So then he can take a week off to think, turn off his phone, then come back with solutions to the real problem. And other people have come back from a week with pictures. Totally different.
And definitely more problems.
Right. More problems.
Less healthy, the list goes on. And decompressing is its own thing, and people do it in their own way.
Right. So that's one definition of full. Maximizing all areas. The other definition of full is, so with each year passing, I would like to say that the best year of my life was last year. No. How does that look? So imagine someone who is 60. I'm sure you've heard this often. Oh, I remember the college years. Those were the best years. Oh, let me tell you about Jimmy, right? And it's like, well, you love the story, but that's kind of sad, because college ended 40 years ago. Like you're saying that for those 40 years, nothing happened. Man, I don't want to live like that. I want every year to be progressively full of life and cherish each moment. And the second part of that is you'll read that. So you'll read often Make-A-Wish Foundation, and you read their story, or you also read on, what's that show called? American Idol. You'll also read on American Idol that someone went through some traumatic experience. They have cancer. They're about to die in 2 years, 3 months, 6 months. And they'll say, for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to do everything I want to do because I'm going to die. We're all going to die, though. Right? We just don't know when. So then why not live like that every day? The people around you, you should be enjoying them, right? The things that you do, you should be enjoying them. Just be great at whatever it is that you do, because just like them, that you will die.
It's powerful. That's the truth, though. I have a reminder on my phone every single morning. Some days I don't look at it because I've had it on my phone for about a year now, but it pops up at 9 a.m. every morning when I start to work. It's typically when I start working, sometimes 8. I mean, it just depends on the day. But it says, life will end, period. Gratitude, period. And every morning, not every morning, most mornings, I do see it, I recognize it, and I read it because it's a reminder that, life will end. Yeah. And you got today, man. Yeah. You might not have tomorrow, but you got today. And a lot of what you say, it's completely true. I'm wondering, were your parents any type of influence in this? Did they have any sort of influence in the kind of, living life to the fullest type of thing?
Well, interestingly, there's so much back in there. So I will say, so my mother, she died when I was in grade 7. So when I was 10, this is 2012, which would have been 11 years ago, right? Which is actually why the book was launched on March 18th, because that would have been her birthday. So the book was launched. Sorry, wrong thing. So my mother, she was a social worker, and I remember there's so many stories about her that I have heard that have showed me that has showed me that she was such a powerful woman. So one thing I remember being at, her memorial, and inside the church held around 500 people. The church was packed, right? The annex, which was the separate place, that was also packed, right? There were people standing back there. Also, there was a tent on this grass here, and there's a tent on this grass here. There were perhaps over 800, almost 1,000 people. And she was one person. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, people flew in just for her memorial service. And that was in 2010. Like, this was like just after the recession. Like, people didn't care. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's incredible. And I'm not saying that, we should judge by a memorial service, but I'm just saying that to show you just how impactful she was as a social worker. And she was full, right? Because she lived her life impacting people everywhere. One of the things that she did was setting up housing schemes for people who were from poverty-stricken neighborhoods so that they could move from homelessness, move from, unestablished housing centers into permanent residence that was funded by the government. And then, they could go in and do this. That's powerful stuff. And if I can have that kind of impact, just even half of that, I think, I would accomplish something really great with my life. And so I'm following those footsteps.
Wow. And I'm sorry that she passed, but I'm so happy for what she did and the son that she created and put out into this world, and that you followed that path.
She's wonderful.
It's because of her that you can now she touched thousands and you can touch hundreds of thousands, or exponential, right?
I'm going for it.
Yeah, you got it, man. It's not, you don't even got to think about it. Just keep doing what you're doing, right? But
it's so wonderful that every now and then there will be someone that comes up to me and says, "You don't know me, but your mother changed my life, and so I'm going to help you." And I can't explain stuff like that, like I did nothing to deserve their help or, their friendship or, whatever they bring to me, but just because of the things that my mother did that just lasted decades. That's powerful stuff.
People think that this stuff is about work, or it's about money, or it's about all of these things, cars, man. We all love, anything you want to assign your next goal or happiness to, whatever it is. But when you say maximize all these aspects of life, you're not kidding. Like, actually, and you're right, your family, that's your number one, and that's your rock.
Right.
Your mom is your rock. You might have another one, but to me, it seems like she's your rock, man. She's holding you. She's holding you down in a great way, meaning hold you down to the ground, and saying, Kadeem, this is why, you're out here doing this, man. You better work. And that's what you're doing, and to help that. But it is so important, and I feel like we lose it in the college, in the going out to do partying, in the entrepreneurship, diving into our work and not looking back. And even no matter which way you want to put it, it's so easy to go farther away from that, when in reality, like, at the end of the day, man, if somebody you love is in the hospital, your world's done. Your world stops, pauses, no matter what meeting you have.
Right.
So, man, I just think that's extremely powerful, and I appreciate you sharing that story, because it's probably not easy to share. And there's a lot of different ways we can go, but I have a specific question about your, the research that you've done, and I'm not sure if you've looked at the system as a whole, but I assume you have. But I'm wondering from you, did you find anything as to why kind of school is kind of set up like it is? Because it's not set up to create you or me or be a full student, really.
Right.
I don't think it is. So do you have any insights kind of on that?
Well, so there are a few things. One, it can't be, because so college serves the masses, right? And as you go up, the numbers start to dwindle. And that's when, you're expected to say, okay, as your master's student, now you have a one-on-one relationship with your professor. Now you can create something of substance. But that's only 2 years.
Yep.
Right? You were in college for 4 years, and even before that, you were in high school for 3, 4, 5 years more, right? And so it's not necessarily the best way to go about waiting until masters, right? So it can't do that. Another aspect of it is, let's take, I think, degrees where the only option for someone to go out and then earn from their degree is to go back and be a teacher and a professor. Mm-hmm. And I think of, I don't want to, shame on anybody's degree, but it does happen a lot for certain degrees, right? So if you have that professor thinking, okay, I'm teaching this to students so that they can go get the degree and then go teach, and that's the type of thinking that continues. So then you have the majority of professors that are training you, and it works that same way for professors who went out, got their degree, went out, did their entire career in Wall Street, or did their entire career at CBS or Silicon Valley. They're training you to go do that, right? Which is to be an employee, right? They're training you to think one way. And so in the examples, you hear in the examples that they give, your employer is going to want you to know this, right? This is something that big companies look for, right? Rather than saying, this is something that will help you with your life, right? This is something that will help you when you're trying to do taxes, right? We don't frame things that way. And perhaps maybe when college just started, like maybe in like 14 something BC,
whenever
maybe it
that
was like that. Yeah. I have no idea. But no, after several centuries of the same thing, that's what's happening. And even in the examples, it goes down. And there are several universities that try to change that. There's Full Sail, for example. There's Hult. Very specialized universities that cater to that. But the majority isn't like that. And that's just what's happening. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we've all had our fair share of. I mean, if you didn't go to college, you've had teachers that were, ready, there to take a paycheck. And if you went to college, then you've probably, I hate to say it, but probably a lot of professors who weren't there in the best interest of the student,
I will say, so I agree. Fortunately, I go to a school, shout out to Seton Hall University, where a majority of the professors do care about students. And I know that that's not the same at every university, so I'm fortunate for that. But I would also say that a majority of the professors are still that mindset where they're training you to be an employee, right? They're training you because this is a job and this is how they make a living. And then there are other professors who are thinking a little bit outside the box, that they want you to be a little bit more full. And then there's a very small number of professors. And if you probably know them because they've had such an impact on you. As you're listening to this, I'm sure like just 5 names pop into your mind. Those professors are the ones that they understand that college isn't the end all, right? And they will show you things that have nothing to do with college. And maybe they'll have a lesson that wasn't even in the syllabus, right? They'll have conversations with you that have nothing to do with the actual coursework, right? Those are the professors that change lives. And I found that those professors are often the ones that are not depending on the college paycheck. I found that, they tend to be already well off, or they have other interests, or they are full professors.
Yeah,
So
they live that full
they
life
think outside the box, right?
already. Yes, one professor comes to mind. Unfortunately, only one. Maybe two or two, actually two, that
I've
had
had,
full lives. And I'm
right,
talking, I went to a nationally ranked community college,
right,
which was pretty high level.
right,
Had shitty professors there too, obviously.
right, right,
But then I went to a state university, had one. That's where I had one that he said, listen, this book, don't worry about it. He's
right,
like,
right.
you know what he said? He said, I'm going to teach you guys how to make apps so you can sell them.
Exactly.
He was a
Exactly.
marketing professor, right?
These are the type of professors that we need in university. These are the
Yes.
type of professors
Not
that
even, I'm not,
create.
I'm thinking school. Like, this is the thing. Like, you got to
Right.
have,
I
obviously,
agree.
we know how messed up and I knew you would agree with that too. And we know how, like, it's it's brought up to the way I always explain it is, I'm not sure if you agree with this way that it's explained, but basically the level that you're at is trying to prepare you for the next level, whether it does or not. So, but that's always what they say. They say, you're in elementary school, well, you got to go to middle school next year. You go to middle school, you're here, you're like, okay, like, it's kind of what I thought. And then you're in middle school, you're like, hey, you got to go to high school. You get to high school, you're like, I don't know. This is not, these people haven't been to high school since they were in high school,
Okay.
So, but they're trying to prepare you for the next level. High school, they're trying to prepare you for college. And then college, they're trying to prepare you for a job, I
Right.
guess. And
Right.
then you get to the job. This is where things go crazy. People they did this whole track, man, because this is the track of their lives.
Right.
And they get to the job and they go, oh my God, this is it. There's nothing else.
This
is
sucks.
Yeah, this
For majority
sucks.
of people, it does, and that to me is just crazy. Because how can you have an entire system that is pushing people to jobs when a majority of people hate their jobs?
Yeah.
Like a majority, like not like a significant percentage.
Statistically,
most people don't like their jobs. That's crazy.
Yeah, a great
Something
book.
is wrong.
Something is wrong, 100%. Many things are wrong, but, and the thing is, and we're going to, like, at this point, I'll probably transition more to the book just to talk, because you have a ton of solutions and a ton of actionable stuff that I want to get to.
Sure.
I think it's important to highlight this stuff, though. And yeah, there's an issue, man. And it's just this entire thing. And just the fact that it may take you that long to wake up.
Right.
Because there's not a lot of people who are going to tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, man, let me show you how it really works over here. Like, you kind of have to go out and find those people, and you don't even know how to find them.
So, one, mentors, right?
Yes.
You said it exactly. You have to find mentors. I think, creating something without a mentor is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And you also said it that it's not just required at college to have these teachers, professors that are interested beyond just preparing you for a job or the next level. And I was fortunate to have that in high school. And, his name was Lorenzo Hall. Shout out to him too. I'll send him this and tell him I shouted.
Oh, yeah.
I gave him a shout out. So one of the things that, I remember when I met him, and we didn't meet on good terms. I was very arrogant.
It's usually how it starts, though.
At the time. Right. And then he took me under his wing and showed me, one, you need to get rid of your arrogance. That's not going to help you. And then also, he challenged me on things like faith. That's how we started. And he challenged me to think about investment. He challenged me to think about time, about money, about what it is that I want to do in 5 years. And he really got my brain thinking. And he was my music teacher. Nothing to do with anything at all.
Going off that, can you tell the boat story?
Boat story?
Yeah, the boat story. The story where you're on a boat and with, I think, one other person and a captain, and something happens. Do you know what I'm referring to? You mentioned it in a video.
Oh yes. Okay, sure. On YouTube.
I knew that you were going to be surprised if I brought that up, so I just dropped it.
Okay, sure. Okay, so
but I think you mentioned 5-year plan, so I wanted to throw it in there.
Okay, sure. So so I told that story for a 5-year plan. Okay, so in short, I was getting ready to go to a private island, right? And I'd never gone to a private island before, and so I met her, and the friend's name was Gus, right? And as we're going out to the private island, we went by boat, and we're going out, and a storm hits, right? And it was me, Gus, and the captain. No, I panicked and passed out. But when I woke up, the storm was done and the captain was missing. Right? So, luckily, Gus woke me up and told me that the captain was gone and he knew where we were heading. And so he decided to go in the opposite direction to get back to the mainland. No, what I said in the presentation was, as we got back to land, I couldn't help but think 3 things. One, which was, I wonder if I'm going to get my money back. And that was the first thing. Second thing, I was wondering where the captain was. I was wondering if he was okay. To this day, I don't know. I hope he's okay. But the third thing was, what if Gus didn't know where he was going? What if Gus didn't know where the captain was going? And I think that, there were more people on the boat, but I tell it like that to indicate that there were really 3 options for where you want to go in life, right? Which was that you can either be like the captain who, disappears when things get hard. You can be like me, who passes out. And also leaves their fate up to someone else, which was the captain and Gus. If they didn't know where they were going, I probably wouldn't be here. Or you could be like Gus, which is to develop a plan, know where you're going, and so if anything happens, you have a plan with how to adapt and how to adjust.
That's yeah, I loved how you told that, and I just because obviously, as you know, storytelling is the best way to learn something. The best way to embed it in your head, the best way to connect with it. And I really enjoyed that's how you framed it. And what you did harp on as well was the 5-year plan. And as you mentioned, Gus, he was the plan guy in that situation.
Absolutely.
And, for me, so recently I connected with this entrepreneur. His name's Henry, and he's sold like $500 million worth of companies. He's this, was this huge CEO. Now he's a business coach. But what he told me, he was like, make a 90-day plan and watch what happens. And I said, that's exactly what I need right now. It's like that, that when I thought about it, I was like, that's one of the solutions to such a simple thing. Mm-hmm. Like, go to Walmart, buy an actual physical planner, costs like $4, mm-hmm. actually write it out and, stick to it.
Absolutely.
But so that's my experience with the plan. I've never made same 24 hours, man. I've never made a plan other than I've made a plan to make an album and write, record, mix, master, produce, release, distribute, market, my music and do all that. I've made a plan for that, but now I have a business, man. This isn't for fun. Now this is a livelihood, right? So, and that's obviously I have a lot of fun, but so I'm right now getting into the mindset of all right, I'm down. Let's do 90. Let's do a year. Let's do 2 years and 5. My goals started to become that, but my plan didn't reflect my goals. I stopped at the goal and forgot about the plan. So, what's the importance of the 5-year plan?
The importance of the 5-year plan, and within the 5-year plan, I will say that it does cater to having that 1-year plan, and that was one of the points that was made in the video. I don't know if the video got that far or if you got that far.
Not sure if I did. I'm not sure if I did, but
it's okay. So at the end, we did a workshop, which was the title of the video. I think it was a workshop where the 5-year plan combines with starting at the end. So as you're getting to the end, there are things that you need to do before you get to the 5-year plan. So in the next 3 months, you must be going after something. In the next 2 weeks, you must be going after something. Year, 2 year, 4 years, and it doesn't even have to be a 5 year. It could be 6. It could be. But the point is that there are steps along that way that you must write down as you're going. I actually read something on Instagram today, and I will say just a note to people who are listening. As I'm scrolling down my Instagram every day, what I get on my page, on my feed, is inspiration and business tips and, well, sports too. But I feed my Instagram with things that inspire me, that push me, that give me information. And I will say, if you are following people and friends and their highlights, just, unfollow them. You don't have to follow these people. So use your Instagram, something that you use often, to inspire you and motivate you daily. I will say that is something that could help someone. So I just decided to say. But as I was saying, I saw it today, and it said, write down your goal in pen, but your plan in pencil. And I thought that was just, that's just wonderful.
Wow, that's because that's it. Yeah,
that's
you know
just
what?
wonderful.
Are you familiar with Jay Shetty?
No, I'm not.
You'll love Jay Shetty. He has this book called Think Like a Monk. He's from the
I know that
UK. Okay, so Jay Shetty. Where he got very popular was the Facebook videos where he commentated on them, and there's he's talking about literally that, all the things we're scrolling on our feed, we're mindless, we're doing all these things, and that's something that he said too, of just kind of like it's about what's in front of you too. And
right.
the thing that I had to realize too is I did the same thing, man. I started following entrepreneurs. I started following hundreds and hundreds of artists, all people who are doing because when I see them in the studio, I'm like, oh man, that's true. I gotta get to the studio.
Mm-hmm.
when I see people like just chasing clout, like they're literally just on a beach somewhere, it's like that just makes me sad I'm not on a beach, man. So it's like,
follow those people.
I followed them too, man. You gotta be like, oh,
I'm just not interested.
Man. Yeah, but you know what? This is what I remembered about Jay Shetty too. My original point. So he mentioned him and Big Sean. Not sure if you're familiar with Big Sean, but
yes.
Great rapper, yeah. And he's done a lot of self work as well, which I'm really impressed with. But he's got to be writing a book someday. But they were talking, and he said people confuse the goal with the target. And this is just the way they frame it. But what I added into it is the spark. So the spark can be when you play cello, when you first picked up cello and you're like, oh, this is fun. Like you weren't even good at it and you loved it, right? Spark. The goal is remain calm, stay disciplined, stay focused, still, go to the gym, maintain physical health and mental health. That's the goal. And then the target is what you're shooting for. I think it's okay to say that's the goal and this is the target. It doesn't matter what the words are. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of times yes, we can make the plan. We can do these things, achieve them. But we also got to make sure that, because I don't know about you, but I forget to eat sometimes, man. So it's like, that's harder for me than the work, dude. The work is like, I love the work, but
yeah.
So, you kind of have to, when you come back to it, it's that all encompassing, the same thing that you said in the beginning, and I think that's a good point, or a good spot to transition to some of the chapters in the book.
Sure.
And one that stood out to me, which is something that has given me trouble, something that I was definitely more easy. So I'll say it like this: I've been making music for a long time. I've been writing music for maybe 4 or 5 years. When you write a song, when you record a song, when you're playing cello for hours at a time, you get into a flow state. And in that flow state, your phone could go off, your brain won't even hear it. And if it does, then that probably means you're not in it. Sometimes it's you try to get in and you can't. And you're like, what's wrong? I'm trying to get in. I want to do this. You have the guitar in your hand. You've been playing for 15 minutes. You're just not feeling it, man.
Right.
And so I've had increasingly more and more of those instances, and only because I have so many different things to do. And it probably comes back to the planning. But for you, where did the flow state start with music? And if not, where did it start, and why is that important?
That's actually funny because, yes, it actually did. Which is funny you mentioned that. Give me 1 sec. Let me just get my lip balm.
Oh, you're good, man.
It's very funny that you mentioned that. It absolutely has something to do with music, and music before coming to college has been a part of me, which is why I just can't put it down. Even as I'm an entrepreneur now, and I still can't put on music. It's just a part of me. Even though it sometimes frustrates me. But I will say, as you're practicing your instrument, 3-4 hours is what's required every day, especially as you get to a certain stage where you see yourself as a professional and you have to be at a certain level. You can't slack off, in other words. And to keep that and to improve, it requires time. If you stop every 10 minutes to check your phone, it's a waste of that 3 hours. If you stop every 10 minutes and then spend 5 minutes on your phone. So as musicians, we learn that when we're practicing, we turn off our phone because we don't want to be disturbed, right? And you said it.
Other side of the room. Yep.
You're right. It's in a different room, even.
Different room. Yep.
So we learn to turn off your phones. We learn to shut off our laptops. Everything, all distractions are gone. And so carrying that over into our studies, for some reason, it's a stretch to carry it over as students. Even students who are musicians struggle to carry it over to their academics. But if we do, you'll find that so much more gets done. One of the books that really helped me with that was Deep Work by Cal Newport. Just understanding that you have to get into that zone. But going back to the book, though, so flow state learning, as it is in the book, is not so much about once you're carrying out an activity, right? Let's say you're in a basketball game and you're in the game and you're in the zone. It's not so much about being in the game. It's when you're learning, when you're in training, right? So when you're practicing the cello and it's just you and the cello. When you're in the gym for 3 hours and you skipped a meal and you didn't even realize it, and all you're doing is working on that right there, right? And that motion, that's flow state learning. And to get into that space, the first requirement is that you have to remove distractions. The second thing is that your mind has to be calm. Because if you're worried about, what your boyfriend said or your girlfriend said, if you're worried about, like bills coming down, you're not going to get there because you're only going to be halfway, right? So that's the second requirement. Third requirement is that, you have to be goal-oriented, right? So once you can't just be mindlessly shooting because then you're not making progress, right? Yeah. So as you're with your cello, sitting down, okay, how do I get into this mode? I remove distractions. I'm thinking about the cello. What is the goal that I'm working on? And it's here that you become a scientist, I like to call, where you're testing and then doing reiterations, right? Test, reiterate. Test, didn't work, reiterate. Test. Okay, that worked, right? And then you keep going. And it's the same thing with sports. It's the same thing with app development. It's the same thing with being a musician. It's just the same process and it doesn't change. And the better that you get at it, the further you go, the more consistent that you are with it. Because some people do it when it's exam time, right? Some people
they get really good at gapping their time then.
Right.
Yeah.
They get
6
really
hours.
good.
I'll just do it till 3 a.m. Yeah.
Right. They get really good for that, 6 days, 6 hours, 2 days, right?
Yeah.
But if you can do it right throughout the semester, which is what the full semester, the full student is about.
Yeah.
If you can do it from the time you're 17 up until the time you're 23, just imagine, what can happen. And that's, it makes just such a big difference.
It's compound interest.
The compound effect. That's another book.
Compound.
I love to read. So
okay, so this is a little bit off topic, but Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Think and Grow Rich.
Of course.
Okay. Good. Yeah. We're on the same page. If you haven't read this book, either of these books, if you never even are thinking about being an entrepreneur, you still got to read them. Like they'll blow your mind. They'll blow your mind. But yeah, that's really interesting. So the so you basically took did you take the music time gapping, the 3-4 hour sessions, and then you just applied it to studying consistently? I try to put things simply, so I'm
not that easy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
But
break it down.
if you were to summarize it, the two endpoints are correct, right? So it started in music and it ended up in academics.
But there's a certain way that you study, though, on top of that.
Right, and that's also in the book. So the technique that I implement, and it's the core of what is proven, which is that so being undistracted, right, as you're sitting down to study, whatever the subject is. And I think one of the beautiful things about the full student is that it is written for any major. People who are in social work can get something. I'm an economist. People who are in biology can get something from this. I'm in music, right? Mm-hmm. So it just spans the entire gamut of the different majors that can be applied. So going back to the study techniques, something called the Feynman technique. So embedded in the Feynman technique is that, one, you have to write down what you know as if you're explaining it to someone who is 12. Because if you don't know it that well, then you don't know it. It's really that simple. You kind of know it, and then you go into the exam and you realize, oh crap, I actually don't know it, right? And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is that the things that you don't know, that you can't explain to a 12-year-old, you have to go back and learn them. But we lie to ourselves and say, oh no, I got that. Yeah. I know it well enough, right? And what's in the middle of that is the test, right? And all students know this, that doing example questions or past papers or, sample papers, you know what I'm saying? All students know that the more tests, more mock exams that you do, the better you do on the real thing, because you get the opportunity to be under exam conditions more. It's the same thing. The more chance that you get to test yourself as you're studying, the better you'll be. And that's what's embedded in the Feynman technique, which is that you have to test yourself to know that you can explain it. And then if you can't, corrections. And then do it again.
Yeah, it makes no sense to shoot soccer goals if you're trying to play basketball. Like, it's like, yeah, you got to test because it's a test.
Right.
And I love what you said. What I realized too is it's very easy to make things complicated. It's hard to make things simple. It's hard to put them in simple terms. It seems like the opposite is true, but it's not.
You learn that in music. It's actually harder to play slower.
Yes.
It's so difficult.
Oh yeah, man, because you got to really, like, for me, like, I started rapping fast because I was a drummer, man. So when I started rapping, I was rapping fast, like, and
slowing down.
My homies were like, hey, yo, your bars are great. We love your music, but we have no idea what you're talking about. And then I went, oh my God, like, that was the best advice I could have heard, and now 4 or 5 years later, I'm able to do both, but it took that long, right? Like, yeah, you're right. It was so much harder for me to do slow, man. So much harder, because there's these little gaps of time now.
Nuances.
Now
you have to control your voice for a longer period of time, right? Even like your finger,
you can't hide it
down smoothly. That has to be a smooth motion.
You can't hide that.
But if you're doing this, there's no nuance there, right? Yeah. So same thing.
Wow, that's true, man. It's amazing. As an aside from this whole conversation, it's amazing how many things in music apply to life. As you know, of being, being a musician.
Everyone should go learn an instrument. Everyone.
Yeah, and let's talk about that too. You say you have a chapter called "Variety Over Rest," and you do a lot. I thought I did a lot of different things, man. You do a ton of different things. So what This is something I'm back and forth on too, because sometimes I look at it where, well, some of the most successful people that I've seen have done tunnel vision, focus on one thing. So, and then some of the other most successful people that I've seen have became extremely successful in a bunch of different things. So it seems to me there's no, concrete, there's no end all be all for everybody, but what is that for you? Why did you write a chapter called Variety Over Rest?
Well, it definitely stems from the idea of being full. So I think, so in the student context, and then I'll take it, macroscopically. So I think okay. So in the student context, we tend to think that it is okay to devote an entire day to studying one subject. That is absolutely wrong. Please stop doing that. Right? So instead, what's actually required of us is to give the brain smaller amounts of time to focus on individual topics so that it can process that and move on to something that's different. And the analogy that's given in the book is the idea of going to the gym. So, gym heads, you'll know this. If you're in the gym, you don't work on your legs for 6 hours, right? Because then you won't be able to walk for the entire week. And so that's how that works. But if you work on your arms, right, if you work on your legs for 2 hours on Monday, then 2 hours on Wednesday, and 2 hours on Friday, yeah, you're going to be sore, but at least you'll be able to walk. And then actually over time, you end up with significantly more growth. Why? Because Monday, you had a chance to rest on Tuesday, then you go again on Wednesday. You had a chance to rest on Thursday, you go again on Friday. Then Saturday and Sunday, you got a chance to rest. Now I get to the brain, but your muscles have a chance to recuperate and actually grow. The same thing for your brain. If you're doing everything in one day, then you don't have a chance for your brain to settle and assimilate all of the information that you just got, right?
Yep.
But if you do it spaced out, then, I remember what I learned yesterday. Oh, this is sticking now. Okay, this makes more sense. Now you're laying the foundation, then you can build on top of it. So the idea of variety over rest starts there for students, which is that you're supposed to do multiple subjects every day consistently, right? Now, on a macroscopic level, the idea of being full is that you have multiple aspects to your personality. And so to think that, I'm only a business person, so I don't care about charity work, that's wrong. Right?
You put yourself in a box. People put themselves.
Right. I'm only a sports person, so I don't really need to know about the arts, because that just makes you a blind person, And there's so much to experience in the world, so much fullness that, I think just limiting ourselves to focusing on one thing hurts us, and we don't get to experience a full life. So that's on a macroscopic level.
I think we don't understand the benefits until, it's hard to see, hey, we're doing all these different things. It's not always easy to see how they impact the other things that we do, but they do in a positive way.
Right.
Depending on what you're doing. I mean, if you're doing hard drugs, well, maybe that's not going to impact it. But if you're practicing music and then you're learning about investing and you're, starting a nonprofit, and it's like,
right.
They are going to cross reference. Like, that's where people have asked me too. They're like, where does you're a music producer? I thought you make podcasts. Like, it's all audio, man. Like, it's all gonna, so it's like, I know how they all tie in. You don't have, it's somebody on the outside might not know. I'm a mechanic. I was a mechanic for 5 years. Like, how does that tie in? Well, it has opened my eyes to many things as blue collars open my eyes to as much as white collar has. I don't know about you, if you've worked, like how many blue collar jobs you've worked, but man, it's a different world.
No, it is.
If you go into that world with that shirt on, like, they're not even going to take you seriously. Like, you're gonna have you better have some dirt on your shirt and some fingernails with some grease in them. Like,
they laugh at you.
yeah. And then you go in the office, they're like, "Why do your hands look like that?"
Right.
It's so funny, man. It's kind of getting off topic a little bit, but still, it comes back to the variety, and I'm so with you, man, because I would work my 9 to 5 and come home and make music and podcasts.
Right. And the brain can handle it.
It can handle it.
We don't need to limit ourselves. We can definitely handle more.
That's it, man. I think it's ultimately, this is where you have to be careful. If I'm growing this podcast company, right, and then I'm also a musician on the side. If I am a musician on the side Like, meaning I spend 8 hours a day on the podcast company. I spend 3 hours a day on music. I cannot expect to grow the music at the same rate that the podcast grows.
Right.
So as long as you're okay with understanding and accepting that whatever you put the most time in and the most energy in is probably going to compound a lot faster than the things you put less in. As long as you're okay with that, I think you're good.
Right.
But I think everybody wants get rich quick. Everybody wants give me the way to do it the fastest, the easiest, and the most.
Right.
It doesn't exist. Never has. Never has existed.
That's right.
So maybe for a little while, maybe for a little bit of money, right? For a little small amount of time, or a lot of money for a small amount of time, but it's not sustainable.
There is a complex that getting rich too quickly can actually send you into depression. So,
the lottery. I mean, if you just look at lottery winners, that's going to tell you right there.
That's just bad luck.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish the lottery on my worst enemy.
Why is that?
Because it's just bad luck.
People would say it's the best luck they've ever had in their life, though.
No, you would think so.
That's what they would say. That's what some people would say.
Exactly. That's exactly what people would say, but it's just not true.
Well, hey, man, they went their whole life banking that the lottery was going to save them, man.
And then they did. and
then they bought 2 Lamborghinis and 3 houses and lost it all 2 years later.
And then they're miserable. And even if they don't lose it, they're miserable. And you see, like, suicide is one of the things that, people struggle with when they win. Just miserable lives thereafter. Yeah. And that's just not fun.
Yeah, man, not fun. And you know what? Comes back to this. What are you doing day to day? What are you doing with your time? Right? That's where it's at. And that's a lot of the impetus of this book too, I feel, is
absolutely
man, what you've done is you've prioritized all these things. Many people can write books. Many people have a story to tell. Many people have value.
I believe that.
And I think you are an outlier. I know you are an outlier, okay? But there's a lot of people who are also outliers who they don't even realize yet the potential. And I think you realized your potential pretty early. And I think that's one of the things that's where the mentor comes in, I think, right? Because that's what he did for you, is he kind of made you think for yourself.
Right.
Like, he made you think. He didn't think for you. He made you think.
Right. And about myself too.
About yourself.
You said, look at you right here. Look at this.
Yeah. Right. I know you wrote this entire book, but what would your advice be to a college student who's unsure, to a college student, a post-grad, a high school student? It doesn't really matter, but to somebody...
You can't stop looking.
Yeah.
You can't stop looking. You have to, which is one of the ideas of being full. You never know what might pique your interest. You never know what might become your passion, right? I didn't know real estate would do what it did for me, but I tried it. I say, hey, whoa, this works, You have to try. You have to go out and try things and overcome that fear of what might my family say? What would, so and so, what if so and so happens, right? You have to overcome that. Those things don't really matter in the long run. You know what no one remembers? Me skipping lunch in high school. No one remembers that, right? No one remembers the parties I didn't go to because I was teaching. No one remembers those things. And it's the same for you. People won't remember that. So keep trying and ignore the things that are telling you that maybe I can't, maybe I shouldn't. Just do it anyway.
Kadeem, thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it. I could do another 3 hours probably. Next one, I'd love to have you in person. A lot of the things that I'd love to personally ask you about, I'd love to have you on again to ask you about. There's a lot more that you do, like the real estate. We could do a whole hour on that probably. But I'm going to keep it nice and short and sweet for the listeners. And this is just packed with value, so I really appreciate it. Your book, the Full Student, is out on Amazon. You can buy it right now. There's a Kindle version as well. But where else can people find you and take value from what you do?
So you can visit my website, thefullauthor.com, thefullauthor.com. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is @IamKade_. I am KADE_. And those are the two places you can find me. On Instagram, you can find many of the links to the other places. And on my website, you can find the link to my other social media and other places. And also on Amazon. If you Google, The Full Student Kadeem, or, go to my website, you'll see the book. So do give it, a look and get the book. I think if you know a high school student, it would help them just tremendously. This is the book that I wish I had coming into college, and perhaps had I had this book, I would have done even more. I'm telling you. People ask me if there's anything I would change. I would have done more. I would have doubled down on the things that I wasn't sure that I was right about. You know what I mean? And so if you know someone in high school, if you know someone just starting their college journey, even if you know someone that is unsure in graduate school, and get them this book. Get this book for yourself. Give it a read, and go be full and go live just an awesome life.
All of the links will be in the description for everybody listening, watching right now. This has been another episode of BOPCAST. We're on all podcast platforms. The video is on YouTube, and all platforms, even the ones nobody uses. So thank you so much, Kadeem, for being here today. I really appreciate you you being on the show today.
Thank you.